Prince William has made a move no one expected, stripping Princess Beatrice of her royal role after explosive revelations about her husband, Edoardo Mapelli Mozzi. Behind palace doors, this decision wasn't emotional. It was strategic, and it sent shockwaves through the monarchy, signaling a new royal era where bloodline no longer guarantees protection. Prince William strips Princess Beatrice's title. The move no one saw coming. No warning, no statement, just a quiet but deliberate removal. Prince William made the call himself, behind closed doors, without press or fanfare. Princess Beatrice's name was erased from internal royal documents, stripped from event briefings, and omitted from future public engagements. While her HRH title legally remains, everything else, duties, roles, and recognition, vanished overnight. She wasn't told in person. Sources say she found out after being pulled from an engagement she had already rehearsed for. Staff had been instructed not to elaborate, only to stand down. When reporters noticed her absence, the palace gave no explanation. It wasn't a clerical change. It was a royal freeze-out. Beatrice's name disappeared from senior royal planning schedules. Security was downgraded, her charity appearances were removed from the royal website, and press inquiries were met with no comment. Internally, staff were told to treat her as a non-active royal. Some even compared it to what happened with Prince Andrew, only quieter, cleaner, and far more calculated. Behind this decision was one name: Edoardo Mapelli Mozzi, Beatrice's husband. And what he failed to disclose is what pushed William to act. This wasn't about emotion, it was about risk. And for William, who's preparing to inherit the crown, the line had been crossed. The business secrets that triggered the royal freeze-out. The red flags started appearing months ago, but inside Buckingham Palace, many chose to look the other way. Edoardo Mapelli Mozzi, husband of Princess Beatrice and founder of the luxury real estate firm Banda Property, had long been seen as a safe royal in-law. Polished, soft-spoken, and carrying the romantic air of Italian nobility, he seemed to fit the modern royal image. But behind the curtain of designer suits and marble showrooms, journalists discovered a far murkier reality. Their findings? A complicated web of offshore shell companies, untraceable financial structures, and gentrification projects linked to forced evictions across London. The company's glossy branding covered over a system designed to maximize profits, at the cost of working-class communities. Nothing uncovered was explicitly illegal. But in a country gripped by a cost-of-living crisis, with food banks overflowing and rent prices surging, the revelations felt like a slap in the face, especially coming from someone who married into one of the most privileged families on Earth. What made it worse? Edoardo had failed to disclose much of it during the royal vetting process before his marriage to Beatrice. According to palace insiders, several key holding companies and business connections were left out of the documents submitted for security and financial review. What was brushed off as a technical oversight soon revealed itself to be a serious breach of palace trust. Then came the photo that ignited a full-blown crisis. Beatrice, smiling in heels and a hard hat, seen touring a Banda Property site in East London, just days before the site was exposed in the media for displacing dozens of low-income tenants to make way for luxury flats. The optics were catastrophic. Palace aides immediately flagged the image to Prince William. According to sources, his response was swift and furious. He reportedly said, "This doesn't just damage her, it taints everything we're rebuilding." The monarchy had spent the last 2 years trying to present itself as slimmed down, relatable, and connected to the people. King Charles emphasized sustainability. William and Catherine focused on mental health and community resilience. And then, this. The final straw came when Edoardo's name appeared in leaked financial records, showing ties to offshore trusts in jurisdictions notorious for hiding wealth. Even if legal, it was politically and morally indefensible. At that point, William made the call. Cut them off, fast and clean. Beatrice, whether complicit or unaware, was pulled into the fallout, and the freeze-out began. William's final warning, and Beatrice's response. It didn't begin with silence. Before Princess Beatrice was frozen out, before her name vanished from schedules and briefings, there was one final conversation, and it changed everything. Prince William requested a private meeting at Kensington Palace, away from staff, cameras, and advisors. According to multiple insiders, the atmosphere was heavy the moment Beatrice entered the room. This wasn't a casual family discussion. It was formal, deliberate, final. William didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His tone was clipped, controlled, unmistakably serious. "Your marriage has consequences," he told her. "The crown can't carry that weight." Beatrice was reportedly stunned. She hadn't expected the situation to escalate so quickly, or to land directly at her feet. She tried to explain, insisting she had no knowledge of the offshore structures, no involvement in Edoardo's undisclosed financial dealings. She framed herself as a wife who trusted her husband, not a partner in his business world. But William didn't soften. He reminded her that in the modern monarchy, intent no longer matters as much as perception. The public doesn't separate spouses. They don't distinguish between private business and royal identity. If Edoardo's actions damaged trust, the damage extended to her, automatically. Catherine, Princess of Wales, was present throughout the meeting. Her role was not passive. Insiders say she spoke calmly but firmly, reinforcing William's position. "This isn't about punishment," Catherine told Beatrice. "It's about protection of the institution and of the work we're all trying to do." Beatrice pushed back emotionally. She argued that her charitable work, her discretion, and her loyalty should count for something. She reminded them that she had never courted controversy, never sold stories, never embarrassed the family. William listened. Then he delivered the line that ended the discussion. "This isn't personal," he said. "It's about safeguarding the institution. And once trust is broken, we don't gamble with it." That was the moment Beatrice realized the decision had already been made. The meeting wasn't about negotiation. It was about notification. She left Kensington Palace visibly shaken. Aides later described her as gutted, blindsided, and heartbroken. Within hours, internal instructions were issued, schedules were revised, security protocols were adjusted, invitations quietly disappeared. The machinery had already been set in motion. This wasn't just a difficult family moment. It was the crown delivering a verdict. And Prince William making it clear that under his watch, no one gets a second chance when the institution is at risk. Title stripped, status removed. What actually happened? On paper, Princess Beatrice's HRH title still exists. Legally, nothing was announced, revoked, or amended. But in practice, what followed was nothing short of a royal erasure, precise, methodical, and ruthless. Within 48 hours of her meeting with Prince William, Beatrice's name began disappearing from senior royal briefings, internal calendars, and ceremonial planning documents. Invitations that had already been extended were withdrawn without explanation. Speaking engagements were cancelled quietly. Seats once reserved for her at official events were reassigned. No public explanation was offered. No family source spoke on her behalf. The silence itself became the message. Behind the scenes, palace aides received clear instructions. Princess Beatrice was to be treated as non-active. That classification carries enormous consequences. Her publicly funded security detail was downgraded, with protection now limited strictly to private, pre-approved appearances. According to insiders, such changes usually involve weeks, sometimes months, of review and coordination. In Beatrice's case, the downgrade was executed in mere days, a sign of how urgently the palace wanted distance. The Royal Rota, the official system that coordinates media coverage of royal activities, stopped listing Beatrice entirely. Journalists noticed almost immediately. When inquiries were made, the response was chilling in its simplicity. No comment. There was no denial, no clarification, no attempt to soften the blow. The palace didn't explain her absence. They simply normalized it. For seasoned royal watchers, the pattern was unmistakable. This was a soft exile, a tactic used when the institution wants separation without spectacle. Many compared it to the handling of Prince Andrew, but with a crucial difference. Andrew's fall came amid legal scandal and public outrage. Beatrice's removal was quieter, cleaner, and rooted in association, not direct wrongdoing. And that distinction mattered. Beatrice herself had not been accused of misconduct. Yet for William, the optics were non-negotiable. Edoardo's business controversies were now inseparable from her public identity. In a monarchy obsessed with perception, proximity alone was enough to warrant removal. The effects rippled outward. Several charities Beatrice had long supported confirmed receiving formal notices of non-availability. Her patronages weren't officially revoked, but she simply stopped showing up. Event organizers described it as eerie, emails unanswered, confirmations withdrawn, no guidance from the palace. One senior aide summed it up with brutal clarity. She wasn't removed with a sword. She was erased with a scalpel. And perhaps the most chilling detail of all? There was no official statement, no farewell, no acknowledgement of her years of service. The palace didn't say she was out. They just stopped acting like she had ever been in. In modern royal politics, silence isn't passive. It's final. The scandalous project that went public. The storm didn't start with a press release or a royal leak. It started with a single photo. The image showed Princess Beatrice, smiling, wearing a tailored coat and hard hat, during a walkthrough of a luxury redevelopment site in East London. At first glance, it seemed routine, another royal showing support for urban renewal. But within 72 hours, the image would ignite a national scandal. The site was owned by Banda Property, the real estate company run by Edoardo Mapelli Mozzi, Beatrice's husband. What the public didn't know, until investigative journalists exposed it, was that this sleek, modern building had been constructed over the displacement of long-standing low-income families. Several tenants had allegedly been pressured to vacate their flats under vague redevelopment notices, their communities dismantled, their homes replaced with expensive units marketed to foreign investors and corporate buyers. While not illegal, the practice was part of a gentrification wave that critics say stripped cities of their cultural and economic diversity. The timing couldn't have been worse. The UK was, and still is, facing a crippling cost of living crisis. Housing insecurity was dominating headlines. Homelessness had spiked. And here was a senior royal by marriage, on site smiling, for a project seen by many as profiting off displacement. Public outrage was swift and merciless. Social media erupted. Hashtags like #EvictionPrincess, #RoyalHypocrisy, and #ProfitOverPeople began trending across X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. The photo became a meme of privilege, a walking emblem of what critics called a tone-deaf monarchy clinging to luxury while the public suffers. It wasn't just noise online. Reputable media outlets piled on. The Guardian published a searing editorial. Why is a royal profiting off displacement? The crown cannot claim to represent the people while standing on the rubble of their homes. The Times questioned the monarchy's ethical obligations in a modern, diverse Britain. Sky News ran a segment titled, "The Royals, Real Estate, and the Question of Moral Leadership." Perhaps most damaging was the shift in tone from financial scrutiny to ethical indictment. Edoardo, once lauded as a sleek businessman with a noble title, was now a symbol of elite overreach. And Beatrice, whether knowingly involved or not, was the face of it. Worse still, it emerged that Beatrice wasn't just a passive guest on the property tour. According to Project Insiders, she had been actively supporting the redevelopment's visibility, possibly to help boost investor confidence. One insider claimed her presence had been a strategic move to lend credibility to the project, royal association as a marketing tool. This detail infuriated advisors inside Kensington Palace. William, already frustrated by Edoardo's undeclared offshore ties, now saw a blatant misuse of royal association for private gain. "This isn't just optics," said one palace aide. "This is brand contamination. And in this age, that's as lethal as scandal." The fallout was immediate. William reportedly halted all joint royal appearances involving Beatrice and demanded that her upcoming public engagements be quietly withdrawn. The image that triggered it all remains online, an unintentional portrait of the modern royal dilemma: duty versus association, privilege versus accountability. For William, it wasn't just bad press. It was the final straw. William draws the line, a new kind of monarchy. There was no hesitation. As the backlash surrounding Princess Beatrice and Edoardo intensified, Prince William moved swiftly, not as a brotherly figure, but as a future king. Those closest to him said his tone was sharp, his orders precise. There would be no waiting for things to cool down. There would be no covering up. Inside Buckingham Palace, William invoked the guiding words of his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II. The monarchy must be above reproach. But he also added something that changed everything. This is not the world she ruled. This is 2025. And every mistake becomes a headline in 5 seconds. William understood something others inside the firm still struggled with. The digital era had rewritten the rules. The monarchy was no longer protected by press etiquette or tradition. Every photo, connection, and silence could spark a firestorm. According to insiders, William called an urgent private meeting with King Charles, presenting a step-by-step plan to quietly remove Beatrice from public-facing royal life. He came armed with dossiers, optics analysis, financial press tracking, trending sentiment across social media. This wasn't emotion. It was strategy. King Charles, torn between family loyalty and public duty, was reportedly reluctant but compliant. He expressed concern. After all, Beatrice is his niece, and her role had never been scandalous until now. But William made it clear. If we don't act, we look complicit. If we delay, we lose the narrative. That was the moment Charles gave his blessing and stepped back. Queen Camilla, known for her calming influence, urged caution. She suggested a slower approach, a private distancing strategy, a temporary step back, not an outright removal. But William rejected it. He believed inaction was more dangerous than conflict. "Silence, ami," William said, isn't safety anymore. It's exposure. What followed was subtle, but historic. For the first time, the king deferred to the Prince of Wales in a matter involving royal image, discipline, and structural control. In royal circles, this wasn't seen as just an intervention. It was a power shift. William wasn't waiting for the crown. He was already acting like the monarch. Beatrice's quiet erasure became the first real-world display of his leadership style. There were no public statements, no dramatic confrontations, just deliberate consequences, quietly executed with no reversal. Aides described it as a signal to every royal under the crown. If you create risk, even by association, you won't be protected by bloodline, seniority, or sentiment. One insider put it plainly.
This is William's monarchy now. It's tighter, faster, and far less forgiving.
And for some within the royal family, that realization is as chilling as it is necessary. Global media turns up the heat.
What started as a scandal within royal circles quickly became a global reckoning. Just 36 hours after the now infamous photo of Princess Beatrice touring a luxury East London site linked to forced evictions went viral, the story erupted far beyond British shores. This wasn't just tabloid chatter anymore. It became an international indictment of privilege, power, and outdated royal immunity. The UK press led the charge. The Times published a blistering front page under the headline, "The Cost of Royal Silence." The Daily Mail followed with a multi-part exposé digging deep into Banda Properties' murky past, tracing allegations of gentrification, shell companies, and offshore wealth. Even the usually cautious BBC dropped the soft tone, calling it a stress test for the monarchy's ethical future. But the scrutiny didn't stop in London. In the US, the scandal hit CNN, ABC, NBC, and the New York Times, not under lifestyle sections, but in prime news columns. One NYT editorial asked the question many were now openly voicing.
Should taxpayer-supported royals be linked to private wealth projects that displace families? Across Europe, Le Monde in France, Der Spiegel in Germany, and the Sydney Morning Herald in Australia all ran their own versions of the story, each tying it back to a broader issue. Has the British monarchy learned anything from the crisis of Harry and Meghan? Or is it falling into a new form of quiet arrogance? Online, the backlash was relentless. Hashtags exploded across Twitter/X, TikTok, and Instagram. Hashtag strip the titles. Hashtag royal reckoning. Hashtag Beatrice fallout. # not above accountability. Trending within hours, these phrases became digital protest banners, demanding transparency, modern standards, and real consequences. Talk shows quickly picked up the momentum. Good Morning Britain debated whether Beatrice should be stripped of privileges. The View in the US turned the controversy into a case study in modern monarchy versus real-world values. Even Stephen Colbert, known for his satire, delivered a biting monologue. How can a royal marry into money and still act like they don't owe anyone answers? But it wasn't just mockery. This time, the tone had changed. The global media machine was no longer treating royal scandals as drama. They were treating them as accountability stories. One commentator put it bluntly during a panel on Sky News. This isn't about one princess. It's about whether the crown can survive without learning, adapting, and leading by example. For the palace, the pressure was now inescapable. The usual strategy, silence and time, wasn't working. And behind the scenes, senior aides were scrambling. For the first time in years, doing nothing was no longer an option. Edoardo's past resurfaces, and it's not pretty. As the media dug deeper, Edoardo Mapelli Mozzi's carefully curated image of the elegant cosmopolitan businessman began to unravel. At the center of the renewed scrutiny was his past relationship with Dara Huang, a respected architect and mother of his first child, Wolfie. Timeline overlaps between the end of Edoardo's engagement to Dara and the start of his relationship with Beatrice raised uncomfortable questions. Did their romance begin before the breakup was finalized? Journalists also revisited older interviews and court records hinting at legal disputes, unpaid debts, and business lawsuits involving former partners tied to Edoardo's development projects. But the biggest blow came from Italy. Reporters revealed that Edoardo's so-called title, Count Mapelli Mozzi, had no legal standing in modern Italian law. It was ceremonial at best, a historical remnant with no official weight. Italian media mocked him as a fake noble selling real estate. "He plays the part of a prince," said one Italian journalist, "but it's closer to theater than reality." His role as a father also drew criticism. While Dara has primary custody and is seen regularly with their son, Edoardo has rarely been publicly photographed with Wolfie. Critics asked, if he doesn't show up for his own child, how can he stand beside a royal one? The result? Edoardo was no longer just a liability. He was a public relations crisis. And the fallout hit Beatrice hardest. Because to many, she wasn't just a royal caught in a scandal. She was a princess who chose to look away. Beatrice's quiet fight back. Stripped of her royal visibility, Princess Beatrice didn't hold a press conference. She didn't post a public denial. But behind palace walls, she began to fight back. Her first move? Canceling 3 planned public events, including a charity gala where she was set to speak. No official reason was given, but insiders confirmed. Beatrice was deeply shaken. She began consulting with high-profile PR teams and legal advisors, exploring how to restore her reputation without defying the monarchy. A rebranding strategy was discussed, possibly framing her as a working mother navigating modern pressures. There were also rumors of a part-time relocation to Italy with Edoardo and their daughter Sienna. The move would allow them to step away from UK headlines and avoid the heat of London media. At recent Windsor events, family tensions were unmistakable. Beatrice kept her distance from senior royals. Princess Anne, known for her blunt approach, reportedly avoided direct interaction with her. One royal aide summed it up plainly. She feels betrayed by the institution, by the silence, and by her own blood. But Beatrice knows she can't undo the damage overnight. For now, she's choosing distance and preparing for a longer war of perception. The ruthless future of William's monarchy. This wasn't just about Beatrice. It was a message to the entire royal family. With this move, Prince William proved that the monarchy is entering a new era, one where blood ties no longer guarantee protection. Insiders at Clarence House say more royals are under review, especially minor members with non-working titles or problematic partners. There's talk that Princess Eugenie could face a similar evaluation, especially given her husband, Jack Brooksbank's business ties and frequent absences from royal duties. Even Beatrice's daughter, Sienna, may grow up without a title, without taxpayer-funded security, and with no formal place in royal duties. A generation ago, that would have been unthinkable. But this is William's monarchy now, streamlined, brand-focused, and unapologetically corporate in its structure. The royal family is no longer just a family, one courtier said. It's a global institution, and institutions protect their image first. Even King Charles, while reportedly sympathetic, stood aside, granting William the authority to act. Camilla urged restraint. Anne stayed silent. The Queen's old philosophy of never complain, never explain is being replaced by William's approach. Act fast, cut losses, protect the crown. The final verdict? This monarchy doesn't forgive quietly. It freezes you out and moves on. Beatrice's quiet erasure isn't just about scandal. It's a warning. William is drawing hard lines, and anyone, even family, can be cut off to protect the crown. As the palace tightens its circle, one thing is clear. In this new monarchy, reputation is everything, and loyalty can no longer be assumed.